Alexa, play relaxing jazz.
Here's a personalized relaxing jazz station based on your listening history on Amazon Music.
Birds flying high.
Alexa, volume 2.
Sun in the sky. You know how I feel.
So,
Breeze drifting on by.
I figured today would be a great time to talk about emergencies in the tank.
It's a new day. It's a new life.
And especially because of what is currently happening. So, we are currently dealing with a little AC problem.
I'm feeling good.
Just make the post quick.
Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on a tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean, don't you know? Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's what I mean. And this whole world is a new world, and a whole world for me.
So, I don't know if, just let me know if the audio is too loud. Just put on some jazz. But anyway, so today we ran into this problem. Our AC unit stopped working. Isn't that great? It's a year-old unit, and it just decided to stop running and pushing cold air. Now, albeit the house is still only 73, 74 degrees, but it begs the question of what do you do when the unexpected happens? You've got to protect the tank, right? That's at its foremost. And currently, I mean, with the temperature of the house only being 73, 74 degrees, that's not a problem because the tank rests at between 77 and 78.5, like 77.5 and 78.5. So that's not really an issue. Let's see what our temperature is currently. It's 78.8. So yeah, it's 0.3 degrees higher than what it should be. But that's not really a pressing matter at this moment. I do have alarms that start to sound at like 80. But it again brings up this great problem of what happens when the unexpected happens to your tank or to your house, right? Power outages, HVAC, heating, or air conditioning failures, all of which can cause a really big risk to your tank if you're not ready. Also, I have my canine Bean shirt on today. She's such a sweet dog. So, a great saying, and I can't remember who it's by, is those who fail to plan to fail. So am I ready for this exact instance? No. I mean, like, planning for a power outage, which is the worst possible scenario that you could have, kind of encompasses all of them, right? Because if the power's out, you don't have heat and you don't have air conditioning. So if you plan for the worst case scenario, then you probably have a plan in place for just everything else is working, just the AC isn't working, right? And you can have kind of redundancies in place for everything. And as in, so for instance, my tank, has the ability that with the Neptune system that I can program in for it to do things if it notices that it's getting too warm, right? So the AC is off right now. If the tank were to start getting too hot, I could have it turn a fan on to start blowing air across the surface of the water, which will cause more evaporation, which subsequently will cool the tank off more. I also have a ton of ice upstairs. I can throw it into bags and float those bags in the tank, which is something that Mark Levinson had to do when he was having some HVAC issues in his house. And he has, a gigantic tank. I think it's like 300 gallons or something. But I can't remember which day his was. But he actually calculated and figured out how many degrees a bag of ice will bring his tank down and for how long, which is a huge, cool thing to know how much ice you could possibly need for that time frame. But again, it brings up, like, what are you going to do? If power goes out, I have a generator. The generator is big enough that it can run the entire tank and the refrigerator if need be, right? So it's big enough for the tank and one medium-sized to large item. So that covers a power outage. Now, I don't have the fan actually placed on the top of the tank because I didn't really ever expect this to happen in a house that was only, a year old. So I have a plan. I just don't have it actively in place. So what I could have had is I could have the fan actually up there, and then as the temperature would rise, the apex would turn on that fan and then start blowing air and send me an alert that, something is wrong in the house because the tank is getting hot. Other things that can happen are like your heaters can fail. So how do you plan for that? Well, you just have an extra heater, right? I've shown everyone in our stockpile of stuff. I have doubles of every piece of equipment except a return pump, maybe, which I should buy, quite frankly. But those are kind of cost prohibitive items. A return pump can be a couple $100. I do plan on getting a backup at some point, but I don't have one right now. I do have an external pump that I could plumb in if really I needed to do it. It wouldn't be pretty, but I could probably get it to work. It wouldn't be pretty at all, actually. It would be ugly. It wouldn't go well. But I could make something work were our return pump to fail. Plus, there's a lot of places around that I could go to get one that could fill in until I could get a real replacement. Your heaters fail, so not only do I have backup heaters in storage, I also have heaters. I have 2 heaters in the tank. There's the main heater, and then there's the backup heater. The backup heater is only triggered to also Anchorage Brewing. So it's only triggered, the backup heater is only triggered to turn on if the temperature gets below a certain point, which means that the main heater has either A, failed, or the heat in the house has failed, so the tank is cooling off faster than the main heater can heat it up. Then the second heater will turn on. Okay. What other emergencies can we have? We can have a leak. Pipe leaks. The biggest thing for planning for a pipe leak is just making sure that you have a way to detect it before it gets bad. I have a couple leak sensors in the high risk areas that are high risk to have a leak at. The return pump, if the plumbing leaks from where like the joints are for the return plumbing, it's just going to leak back into the sump. So that's not really a problem. Hi, Riley. Yes, sweetheart. How can I help you today? Yes. You're a good dog, okay. Say hi. Good girl. That's a very good dog, yes. Okay. But so the other thing is it's all early detection. Do I have extra pipe laying around? No, not really. Actually, that's not true. I have some small sections of pipe and hosing that I could use that I could use as like a stopgap for I don't know, a day or so until I can get the actual parts I would need. But the apex is triggered to sense that there's a leak in one of the risky areas, and it's mostly around the skimmer and the carbon reactor, because those are the places that are most likely to leak if anything is going to leak. The skimmer is protected by because if it were to overflow, right, as skimmers do, it would overflow into the skimming locker. The skimming locker would fill up and shut the skimmer off. Now, if one of the pipes or tubing is leaking from the skimmer, that would drain into a little collection bin that's underneath it, which would then trigger the leak detector, which would then shut the tank off. And all of that would shut off that feeder pump that feeds the skimmer and the reactor, and sends me an alert saying, "Hey, shit's gone sideways." The other issue could be what happens if your lights fail. I don't even really consider that. Hey, nobody asked you. No. I don't even consider that an emergency because I have 3 lights. So will they be fine with 2 lights till I can get a replacement in? Yeah, definitely. I don't keep extras of lights because I don't really see them as an emergent problem to deal with. All I need to know is that it's not working. That's it. Now, if the tank were to leak, there you have a very big problem, right? So how do you detect that is leaking? Well, you can have a sensor laying on the floor somewhere to detect that water is actually draining out. But otherwise, the only way you're going to know is by seeing it, or seeing that the water level's low, or getting like a low water level alert alarm. Or another good one would be like the ATO is running too long, and it sends after it runs for 5 minutes, it sends like an alert saying that it's run for longer than it should have. So that's when I'll usually check the camera, because I do have a camera pointed at the tank, and I'll check and see, is everything look okay? Does the water level look low in the tank? Do I see water coming out of somewhere? Things like that. And we can kind of delineate the issue from there. But if the tank is leaking, I mean, you've got to move quick. You've got to get either the hole filled, or you've got to start getting your animals out of the tank. Also, depending on where the leak is from. Luckily for me, and that's one of the reasons why I went with the acrylic tank. Yes, it scratches super easily. There's a couple sections on it that really look like crap right now, and I'm not really pleased about it. But the acrylic is fused chemically. Like there's no seam. There's no seam to break. It's not like there's silicone that's eventually going to wear out and rip and let go. It's physically sealed. So the only weak spots are the holes that are drilled at the top for the overflow. I don't even have a hole in the bottom. So were there to be a serious leak, it can only drain out to the level of those overflow bulkheads. At which point I'll know far ahead of time. And we do have some slow leaks from those, actually, come to note it. So, some other things that could happen emergently, I mean, those are really the big ones. Power failure, which the only way to fix that is a generator, right? If you lose power, you have nothing, right? You don't have the ability to heat. You can still cool the tank, right? Another good thing to have for like a complete power failure, just to buy you time. And I bought one. You can kind of see it in the corner there. I don't have it hooked up yet. I really need to do that soon, though. Is like an APU, an auxiliary powered unit. Basically, one of those like battery pack power strips, surge protector things that like they'll use for computers. That's a good stopgap. You just have to know how much that specific APU is able to discharge and how much your tank uses. So I originally bought a smaller one, thinking that would be enough. And then lo and behold, I actually looked at the apex and it told me how much power I use and draw at one time. And it was more than that APU was capable of discharging at a time. So I had to get the next one, which was a monetary investment, but it is what it is. You can always return those things, or I actually just kept it so that I can keep my internet online in case of a power failure as well. I like plugged my modem and my wireless router into it so that even if the power goes out, the Apex in theory should still stay connected to Fusion. But that APU is really just a stopgap to buy me time to get my generator out, get the cord pulled in, get the generators running, and get the tank on a long-term fix as opposed to that short-term fix. Because that APU is probably, depending on what the heating cycle is, like I could also shut off the heaters depending on like where in the cycle the heating is. Like if it's at its peak temperature, I've got a lot more time to play with than if it's at the bottom. But without the heaters running, I could probably run it on the APU for 2, 3, maybe 4 hours. Because everything is DC in the tank, which means it uses minuscule amounts of electricity. Let me look right now. I believe we are using. I believe we're currently using. No, honey. Okay, honey. So right now, none of the heaters are on. We're just running everything else in the tank. The wave pumps, everything else. We're at 329 watts. It's that's awesome. So I could probably get 4 or 5 hours out of that APU. Now that would give me time to, say get home from work or have Rachel get home or have somebody come over, get the generator running and everything. Why do you want love and affection right now while I'm trying to do something, honey? Dogs. Where was I? Yes. So the generator. So even the generator, though, you have to be careful what you plug it into. So I also bought that APU because it's rated to kind of take the fluctuations that can come from generator power out of it and make it safe for electrical equipment, which is very important because guess what's very sensitive electrical equipment? The apex, right, in most controllers. So you need to make sure that you either one get a generator that is rated and clearly states that it is safe for electrical equipment, for sensitive electrical equipment, or you need to have some kind of a bridge between the two, right? And that's the same for if you were to have like a bigger generator that you plug in and you run your house off of it. Same, right? There still needs to be some kind of a stopgap and a safety net for the expensive, sensitive electronics. Basically, if you wouldn't plug your laptop computer into it to run it off of, then you shouldn't plug your controllers or a fair amount of your aquarium equipment into it either, because it's sensitive. You don't want to risk that. APUs are cheap. Just buy one. Right? It's a lot cheaper than replacing, a $250 return pump or a skimmer pump. Nothing is cheap, especially the larger you go. But another stopgap, if you can't get a generator right away or you don't have one, money is a little tight right now, you can have a battery powered air pump and just put the air stone in to the tank, and that will at least break the surface of the water, the surface tension of the water, and allow a gas exchange and get a little bit of water movement in the tank. And those can run, I don't know, an hour or so. I have one too, because I literally plan for every eventuality. Actually, I had it from when I had the smaller tank, when I had the 34-gallon bow front, before I got the generator. So I had that, and that was one of my stopgaps. And I keep it now because it's still a stopgap, right? I can still throw it in while everything's running on like low power mode, and kind of help with oxygenation and water movement. But also, it's for the other tanks. The other tanks aren't on any kind of backup system. They don't have the apex taking care of them yet. That's a long time goal, very long term goal, right? At least I want the tank that Kevin will be going into as our like fish only system, for that to be controlled by the apex. No, but right now it's not. So I'll know that there's a problem. So now I need backup stuff to take care of that tank, right? And I do. I have an extra fan, little guy. I think it's like a clip-on that I could put on it and blow across that tank to kind of cool it off. But otherwise, I would need like that Airstone pump, the battery powered one, and that's really all I've got for her. Got to kind of start to bolster that actually, until I can get the funds to, put that tank onto the Apex as well. Another thing I could do for that is we could actually plumb it all together and like drill the 40 breeder and plumb it into the sump for this tank, and then it'll just be, instead of like a roughly 190 gallon system, it'll be 230 gallon system. So that's a possibility as well. Not a great possibility, but it's a possibility. Let me just get this phone call real quick. All right. So, we're back. I didn't really have much else. It seems like this may be a longer term issue for us to fix for the AC. So I'm going to call it a day for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to go get our emergency plans in place for the tank for an overheating issue, just in case it were to happen, so that I'm not scrambling at the last minute to get the fan set up. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, leave a like. It really helps the channel grow. And we'll see you tomorrow.